And welcome back. Freedom Agenda is a member-led project dedicated to community organizing to drive systemic decarceration and transformation of the criminal legal system launched at the Urban Justice Center. Freedom Agenda's vision is centered to transform communities historically disrupted by systems of punishment and structural racism through policy shifting. Freedom Agenda advocates for critical investments such as housing, treatment, education, and employment, which are basic necessities for all New Yorkers. This in tandem with the push for the urgent closure of the notorious Rikers Island jail complex, which has repeatedly ignored the rights and humane treatment of incarcerated people. Joining us now to share a little bit more is the co-director of Freedom Agenda. I'm pleased to be joined by Darren Mack. And Darren, good to have you here on the Social Justice Forum.
Thank you for having me, Darren.
It's not often I get a chance to talk to somebody named Darren, so it's really going to be cool. So thank you so much. Listen, for people who don't know about the Freedom Agenda, I wanted to take a little bit of an open up by letting you share a little bit about the work that you guys do. I gave an intro, but tell us a little bit more in depth.
Yes, so Freedom Agenda, like you mentioned, is a member-led project. Our members who are formerly incarcerated, members of the community, like the South Bronx, Bronxville, South Jamaica, Queens, who are impacted by mass criminalization and incarceration in New York City, including myself. I was formerly incarcerated. I spent 19 months on Rikers Island when the population was over 20,000 people incarcerated there. And ultimately, I served approximately 20 years in the prison system. So Freedom Agenda came together as a continuation of the work to close the last penal colony in the United States and what is more commonly known as Rikers Island. And we do this through, as you mentioned, policy change, through decarceration, defending the human rights of incarcerated people, especially in this COVID-19 moment, and divesting from the carceral system and redistributing those resources back into the communities that's been harmed by mass incarceration and racism in our city.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more closely about Rikers Island. I mean, a lot of people have comments about Rikers Island, a lot of concerns, but from your perspective, talk to us about how you see Rikers Island and the challenges it actually causes.
Yeah, so Rikers Island, I find a lot of people actually, I come across who, New Yorkers don't really know too much. They think Rikers Island is a prison when it's actually a jail complex with 10 jail facilities on the island. I always say that it's the last penal colony because unlike anywhere in this country, Alcatraz, which is in California, closed decades ago in the 60s. McNeil Island, which was probably one of the last penal colony to close in the 2000s. Rikers Island is the last penal colony where is a jail complex that is isolated away from from the boroughs. It's an island in of itself. And one of the things that some of the challenges is that there's been attempts to close Rikers Island in the past, but it's always been a top down. But for the first time in the last 5 years of my advocacy and organizing in the movement to close Rikers Island, it's been a bottom up. It's been actually centering the people, the survivors of Rikers Island, and telling the city why the Rikers need to be closed, not later, but as soon as possible. So I think that was one of the key differences in regards to shutting down what I also call the Abu Ghraib of New York City, because it's coming from people who actually experience the horrors and the trauma of Rikers Island, leading this movement in order to into the end this place which is a stain on our city.
Darren, talk to me about Rikers Island on the inside. What is it that we don't get to see that really maybe the public isn't familiar with? Because as you said, some people didn't even know Rikers Island exactly existed, and there's 10 jails on the complex. If they don't know that, they're not really too familiar with what goes on indoors. So take us with the walk indoors. What have you found from both inmates and also staff when it comes to Rikers Island?
Yes, so one of the things that always come to mind is on the streets, especially during this Black Lives Matter movement, we've seen a lot of the brutality that comes from agents of the system, in this case, cops, where people actually capturing videotape of the brutality and abuse and murders on videotape in the streets when it comes to agents of the system inflicting brutality and harm to civilians. So on Rikers Island, you don't see that. People can't just pull out their phone and record a brutality. And as someone who experienced it when Rikers Island was not on the spotlight in the media, I can tell you that it happens every day. Martin Luther King said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And every day, people are being brutalized. Every day, like within this last year, already 4 people have actually died in the custody on Rikers Island. We all know the story about Khalif Browder. We all know about Lady Polanco, a young transgender woman who died in her cell in solitary confinement. So these things we don't see, because unfortunately, the people who manage and control Rikers Island don't leak this information out to the public, and people just can't walk in and record this. So that's why, as people who survived it knows that brutality and trauma and punishment is happening every single day for those people who are detained on Rikers Island. And the majority of people who are detained on Rikers Island, they are there majority because they can't afford to pay a bail, so that's a situation, and that's something that we try to highlight and share our experiences. And the only solution for Rikers Island is to shut it down, to close it.
Yeah. And so we know that there are plans to really close it down. Talk to us about where things stand right now, and are you satisfied?
Yeah, so there needs to be improvements on the city's plan. Like right now, the city made a public commitment to close Rikers Island down by the end of 2026. So by 2027, Rikers Island should be known to close. And at the same time, for those who continue to be detained in the system, because if you close Rikers Island today, where people say where they're gonna go. They're not gonna just go home. For those who continue to be detained in the system, Freedom Agenda believes that we have to address the conditions of the facilities that's in the boroughs. I think the Queens House been closed for years now. Brooklyn House closed last year. So all you have left is the Tombs in Manhattan, the Manhattan Detention Center, and the Boat, which is adjacent to the Bronx. So it's like approximately a little over 4,000 people in the system. And it's only so these 2 facilities, the Bronx, which is the Boat, and the Manhattan facility, only is less than 2,000 beds. So we're not gonna put 4,000 people in 2 facilities that only has a capacity for 2,000, beds. So what was brought to the table was a borough-based plan to, demolish all 14 facilities throughout the city. That means the 10 jails on Rikers Island, the Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, and just go down from 14 down to 4 facilities. When it's renovated, where you create programming space, where you have space, for visitors, you have space for different services. So that's a plan that the city put forward, and we pushed to even improve, and we're going to continue to improve, push in order to improve, because we're going from, like, when I was Rikers, it was 20,000 people there. So we're going from right now about 17,000 beds in the system down to 3,300 beds. And so that's, our plan. And we believe that we could probably bring it down even less.
Mm-hmm. We're hearing a lot about Renewable Rikers, and that's a program that's out there right now, looking at how to make Rikers Island a place of improvement going forward in the future. Give us a little bit about Renewable Rikers and your thoughts.
Yeah, so Renewable Rikers is a vision that, people who've been impacted by, Rikers Island believe that once we close Rikers Island, that there's peaker plants all across the city. Most of these peaker plants are in low income and communities of color. And these peaker plants are a certain amount of energy. The peaker plants kicks in to keep this energy going. And these pico plants also exhume a lot of toxicity into the atmosphere. You know, that's probably why they're located in low-income communities of color anyway. So the Renewable Rikers vision is to get rid of all the pico plants across the city, including the water treatment centers across the city, and then make Rikers Island into green, sustainable energy, you know, that will power the city, you know, and that would create green jobs. That would get rid of a lot of toxicity, you know, that these pico plants exhume. Also, you know, these pico plants takes up like large amounts of space, like big city blocks. That will free up space, you know, for communities to, like, if they want to build parks or affordable housing. So the Renewable Rikers Act, which is legislation that's active right now, you know, one of the legislative bills will remove the ownership and control of Rikers Island out of the hands of the Department of Corrections and into the hands of the Department of Environmental Protection. So that's one of the things that Freedom Agenda is pushing, along with organizational partners and environmentalists across the city. And that's where, you know, the vision of Rikers Island that we see going forward.
Yeah, you got active legislation that's out there in regards to this, and then some. Give our viewers a little bit about the active legislation that you're pushing for with regards to Rikers, and then some.
Yeah, so there's so many, like, I like to describe this, the carceral system is like an octopus with a lot of tentacles. You know, you have people on Rikers Island who are incarcerated there because, you know, they've been violated for parole technicality. You know, they've been violated, they violated parole on a technical, you know, violation, and because they came home instead of 9 o'clock curfew, they was there 9:01 or 9:05. So you have people that's on Rikers Island with that, and there's a bill, an active bill right now that's out there called Less is More, which will actually end the incarceration of people for technical violations, and that will free up literally thousands of people across New York State, and it would impact Rikers Island as well. And so that's just one of the many pieces of legislation. The Renewable Rikers Act, which is, you know, a trio of bills that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, so those two are kind of like two of the bills that we're focusing on right now.
Yeah. I know that when it talks about mass incarceration, the criminal justice system, Michelle Alexander wrote the book, The New Jim Crow. Give us a little bit about your perspective on the Jim Crow, because I hear it, I understand it, I internalize it, but some of us still are in the fog. And so there's a question about how we can tackle this new Jim Crow.
Yeah, so there are literally thousands of laws across our country that legally discriminates against people who have a criminal conviction, especially a felony conviction. Like for instance, we're in a voting season right now. There are states in our country that actually that disallows you or criminalizes you for voting. So you lose your right to vote for the rest of your life because you have a felony conviction. And we have over 20 million people in our country that have a felony conviction. Over 70 million people in our country who have a conviction, you know, whether it's a misdemeanor or felony altogether. So the new Jim Crow are like laws that actually target people to disempower people, you know, like voting, like getting a driver's license, like getting certain like becoming a firefighter. Like in California, you had at one time, I think the law was passed this year, but for years, incarcerated people were being trained to put out fire and risking their lives for like $1 an hour. But when they come home, they couldn't become a fireman because they had a felony conviction. And this is a part of the thousands of laws that, you know, that we basically call as part of the new Jim Crow. You know, it marginalizes people, you know, who are formerly incarcerated from different sectors of the job market or licenses market. And yeah, so that's like just an extension of the old Jim Crow.
Yeah. Well, without certain things, you know, it always leads to recidivism, right? If you don't have the necessary resources, if you don't have the help coming out of incarceration, the recidivism rate always continues to go higher, because that's just a fact. People who come out of prison, they want to find jobs, they want to find resources, but yet and still it becomes very hard for a lot of people on this side of incarceration. Talk to me about you as as you transition from incarceration into society, back into society, doing great and productive things. How receiving and how accommodating was the public towards you coming on out?
Yeah. So I think like my personal experience, I had a lot of support from the inside, and
Mhm.
I had support on the outside. But my preparation on the inside basically helped me navigate through a lot of the obstacles on the outside. I'm a graduate of a program called the Bar Prison Initiative, which is a college higher education college and prison program that offers associates and bachelor degrees to men and women in New York State. And they had a re-entry department that once I knew that I was going to be released, that okay, where you going to live? Okay, let's put your resumes together. If you're gonna continue in school, like we're gonna get all these things in place. So when I'm released, that I have a place to go. I have my resume. I have like different, connected to different resources in my transition back into society. And so for me, I was blessed to have these different supports to help me navigate through that. But for so many people, they left, communities that lack the resources and lack the support. And then to return back to those communities that still don't have those resources support, I think there's a gap there that cities and states need to fund and in order for people to have a really smooth transition. Because right now, I would say almost 50% of the people who are released, recidivist, are reincarcerated within 3 years. So that says something about the Department of Correction. Like they reckon if my business was doing that bad, I wouldn't be in business no more. So I think we need to really be thinking about doing things differently and listening to directly impact people to come up with solutions. Because I've had some level of success and I could contribute to policies and programs that can help others, achieve a certain level of success as well.
Before we go, please allow our viewers an opportunity. If they want to partner with the Freedom Agenda, how do they get connected and what do they do?
Yes, so you can go to email us at fa.urbanjustice.org, and you could if you interested in doing work around decarceration or divesting from systems of punishment and investing in impact communities with advocacy and organizing around that, or you can contact me at dmack@urbanjustice.org, and I definitely would love to collaborate because it's going to take a broad coalition of activists, advocates, and organizers to see a better future for our city and state.
Darren Mack, gotta leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, brother. And it's great to see the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Darren Mack, our guest here on the Social Justice Forum. We still have more show. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. The Social Justice Forum will continue right after this.